Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. It's already 11 o'clock, so let's get started with our presentation. But before I get to introduce myself, I would like to remind you that if you would like to listen to the interpreting services, also if you want to listen it into a different language, you can have access to it. There is at the bottom a globe icon, and then you can select your preferred language. My presentation will be given in Spanish, so if you would like to have interpretation in another language, you can have it in your preferred language. Good morning. I'm very glad that we are greeting ourselves in the chat. We are going to use our chat as our primary means of communication. We know that we have a very big community, so we are going to try to keep as much as possible the control and try to be everybody in mute. So we are going to keep the chat function mainly. My name is Bianca Vargas Ocasio. I'm in the Center for Childhood Resilience in the hospital, Children's Hospital of Chicago. This is a great pleasure. We are going to be talking about how to provide emotional support to children affected by trauma. I can see that there is a lot of people in this session, so I would like to be sure that this is a session you would like to be in. I know that there are some of you by the phone, so I'm very glad that you can be connected and attending this session in any means possible. If it's not possible to get access into the chat, no worry. Don't worry, we are going to be using that chat for sharing comments, suggestions, or ideas. Once again, thank you very much for being here on a Saturday. I know this is taking your time for listening to this presentation, so let's get started. First of all, we are a collaboration and learning model in the hospital, so we would like you to ask that do not copy these slides. We are going to share all our materials, but please let us know beforehand when we are going to share this information. Before we get started, I would like to agree with all of you. We know that we already are 43 people in this session, and we understand that anybody would like to get informed about trauma, to clarify some questions or doubts, or maybe you could have some personal experience or somebody that is very close to you with this type of experience. So with these group agreements can help us to guide the conversation. The first of them is to respect different perspectives. According to how we've been raised up, we can have different perspectives, different points of view, so please be respectful in all of them. Even if somebody shares their opinion or if they share something completely different. The second point in our agreement is confidentiality. I know that this is a big word that only means privacy, so we are not going to ask you to share some personal opinion, but if there is some information that could be sensitive or personal, then we are going to respect that privacy by no sharing outside of this group. And then the third point is to be actively listening. We know that sometimes there could be many people talking at the same time, but please pay a lot of attention to the whole presentation and listen along of it. We also are going to recognize that this presentation could be difficult because we are going to focus ourselves in a trauma that could cause an emotional impact. This material and this discussion could also carry an emotional burden that could be very aligned to your experience. But if you want to share something or from your side or from somebody that is very close to you, you can share that. And we would like to remind you that you are in a safe place. We are among friends. And please feel free to express yourselves. And if you want to leave the call or to take some time for yourself and take a deep breath so you can take care of yourself, it's okay. We know that self-care is extremely important. So you need to do everything in terms of taking care of yourself and your emotions. Once we have agreed these terms, and we have been introduced, I would like to start with my topic. And the first thing I would like to do is to define trauma. I think we have heard that word before, and this is basically an overwhelming experience, something that could be life-threatening of a person's life, and usually is far from any other experience that could be called ordinary, and also is causing a lot of stress. When we are talking about traumatic stress, especially for children, when they have gone through these type of experiences, we know that we have these events or situations that can overwhelm the way that they can face life. When they have been exposed to this type of situation where their life was threatened, or maybe they could be hurt, or maybe they have lost a dearly relative, they can show some signs about this post-traumatic stress. It would also depend on the level of danger or risk or the subjectivity of the events, as well as the development stage of the children. Two different children can react different to the same situation. Let's say that a couple of siblings were in a car accident, and maybe one of them could be back into normality, but with no any other consequence. However, the other one can show some different signs. It could have been emotionally affected, and it could also affect any other areas of life, such as school. And we don't have a safety transportation for getting into school, and that could also even affect more. This is not the way that a post-traumatic event can be caused at the same level in different children. So what I'm saying is that not all children that has faced different or difficult times are traumatized. We know that there are some children with a higher resilience level or a different way to cope with these situations. Also, there are different types of trauma, and I'm going to describe these different types of traumas. We have the acute event. What that means is that this is a short and unique event, such as a car accident. It could also be like an assault or something that could be a very clear point where it starts and where it ends, and then the consequences continue. The second and the third one is a collective trauma. These are recurring events and long-term events. For instance, the domestic violence, abuse, or molestation. And the third one, is a collective trauma. We could also have wars, where a group of people are experiencing the same type of trauma. I would like to just take some time and start thinking, how can you share in the chat what type of traumas have you seen or experienced in your community? I would like to see in the chat from your experiences, from your communities. Angelica is saying divorce, family, relative that have passed away, the suicide, sexual abuse, the trauma due to the pandemic, mental health, domestic violence, to be part of a gang, then students that are from other countries, or they just come to this country, but they belong to different countries. Then another time we have domestic violence. Please feel free to share this. Racism, gangs. Thank you very much for sharing all these ideas. You have given excellent ideas and examples. I'm going to talk about a different ones that are also called trauma. For instance, the negligence or psychological abuse, natural disasters such as terrorism, or violence community or violence within schools. This also could be something different, or violence maybe with boyfriend and girlfriends or with their parents. We also can see the molestation or sexual abuse in children. You can also have as an example an unexpected death of a relative, or a different experience for the refugee. Also for the military families, if they have lost one of the parents of this parent is changed due to the violence that they have suffered during those times away from home. So let's keep going then and see how trauma can affect the brain of a children. A normal event, when you can see this event, the memories are being stored in the standard area of our brain. And many times we can remember the event in a chronological event as part of ourselves. We know exactly what happened. And usually we are capable of telling this event, and we have our emotions and our thoughts. Yes, this and that had happened in this time or at this moment. When we have a traumatic event, our normal capability for reminding all these events are different, and our memory is fragmented and it is scattered in different parts of the brain. And the memory, usually when we have this traumatic event, does not have a chronological event. And how to communicate that is also blocked. So then we just need to trigger those events once again, and they can relive it as a real event. For instance, maybe some smells or certain images or certain places can trigger that memory. And sometimes traumatized people can experience retrospective memories and feel if they are already reliving the moment, turning it as a present, like a nightmare that you can feel that is real. Well, what you can see in this slide is a 3-year-old children. The one in the left is a child that hasn't got any trauma, a normal care up to the 3 years old. And the one at the right is the one that has suffered from neglection. What can you notice from these two images? Once again, you can use the chat for sharing your ideas. What are the main ideas or the main points that you can mention about these two? The size, yes, one is bigger significantly than the other. The shape, yes, we can see that the surrounding areas are like more into the inside. We also have a bigger, darker areas. So we can see that the trauma impact goes not only in our emotions, but also in our brain development. And this is just an example on how children could be affected in their development. Trauma, it does not only affect our brain and development, it can also affect our answers or reactions. So during the stress, the brain is affected by hormones. So how many of you have listened? You can raise your hand if you are in the video. How many of you of the fight or fly or fight? Have you heard that phrase? This response of fly or fight is when they are facing a threat and our body is being prepared to fight back or to fly. That means to go away. So this was completely useful for our study when we have in the human evolution, they needed to fight for food with an animal and they were trying to survive and trying to take care of their own. Nowadays, we can think as how to get an answer for that. Let's say that you are looking in your pocket or in your wallet to see if your new phone is still there. And then you suddenly realize that it's gone. What happened? What happened if it's a brand new model or a brand new device? You're going to get all sweaty, anxious, your heartbeat will be faster. So what would happen when you notice that the telephone was on the table? Men, you will be relaxed and the adrenaline that was running all around the body is now going down and your breath is getting to normal. So this is just an example that could be related to our days. The point here for fly or fight is that this could be adaptive. But what happened with all these children that have been affected by a trauma? This fly or fight response is activated even in situations that shouldn't be. For instance, when you just lap the shoulder, or when an adult raises their voice, or when you just feel the look of somebody, this response or fly or fight could be activated easier than in any other situation. And this is just a false alarm. Also, in addition to these children with trauma, the response lasts for longer periods. That adrenaline and that cortisol, when, for instance, in our that we found our phone, for children that have been affected by this trauma, takes longer to get into normal levels. So let's imagine that you're anxious, nervous, stressed, trying to learn at school, trying to meet the different expectations from our parents, trying to do different activities that we do not longer enjoy. That would be even more difficult because that response is still active and it's even more difficult to go back to a normal level. Now that we understand a little bit how the trauma affects our brain and our responses, I would like to share with you some symptoms or signs of this trauma. Now that we know exactly how it is going to be expressed in terms of the behavior of our children. For instance, your child who is having traumatic stress, you can notice by some of these symptoms. Maybe they have a poor sleep or nightmares. She or he refuses to go to school, the poor appetite, bedwetting, or some other regression stages, the interference with development. Maybe they can get angry. They can fight with their brothers, with their siblings. They can, maybe they would like to avoid situations that could get fear. They could be withdrawn, having these activities, withdrawal, or with friends. They are feeling nervous all the time, intrusive memories. That doesn't mean that if your child has 2 or 3 of these symptoms, means that they have been suffering from a trauma, but we just need to take into consideration that they have gone through a traumatic event that have affected him or her. We are not saying that all of them have been affected by a trauma if they have some of the symptoms. And finally, we are going to talk about how can we help our children with this trauma. I just wanted to give you some information how post-trauma stress could be treated, a child or an adolescent. So we have the education about the impact of the trauma. It's not only about the children, but the whole family. If you are here, it's because you are getting informed, and that's a step forward for trying to provide this support to the children. We also can help that they can get this safety and comfort environment. They are trying to create this safety environment, and they can feel comfortable by expressing what happened.
We also use things for overwhelming events, like take a deep breath, mindfulness. It could also be any type of technique that could enable them to control their emotions. The opportunity of talking about that trauma and making sense out of it. So many of the treatments that are provided are around of being able to talk about the event that caused that trauma without being emotionally affected by it when talking about it. It also involves caregivers, parents from the onset of this therapy. We know that that is key for the child, boy or girl, to overcome that trauma. Maybe you will be asking yourself, what can I do? What can I do at home to support my boy or my girl? The truth of the matter is that parents want to prevent children from being affected by trauma. You need to have somebody to talk about your own feeling as a parent so we can help our children. So let's talk a little bit about those strategies. I want to mention some points before moving forward to the idea of how to help them. We know that uncertainty makes us all anxious. Just imagine how difficult it is for us as adults to make sense of difficult events that we have experienced. If it's difficult for us, just imagine how difficult it is for teenagers and children when you don't have a clear answer. Anxious children can be completing blank spaces with catastrophic events. So we cannot enable that, or sadness or rage could increase panic all the way of making lack of hope. We need to challenge the fears of that child. We need to acknowledge what they are feeling and abstain ourselves from promising things that you cannot keep. Maybe if you make those promises with the best intention possible, but we know that there are things that we cannot promise because we don't know if things will turn out fine. You can tell them, we don't have all the answers, but we're trying to find the solution to help you as much as we can. So we have our physiological first aid method that will be the common crisis response that we can have for a crisis or catastrophe. The second column to the right of the screen is the helpful aids and answers that we have around that core area. If the response is fears, the help or aid would be security and comfort. If the response is anxiety, then bring comfort. If the need is to feel connected, the answer will be connectivity. If it's a feeling of being overwhelmed, then the aid that we can be is have your own and community effectiveness. And if it's despair, then the aid could be to provide hope. Before going on, since we are talking about people that are undergoing crisis, I would like to hear you from at the chat. What is your main concerns about talking to your children about what is happening now, about that event that caused that trauma? Do you have any concerns about that? Is there something that makes you feel nervous to sit down and have that talk with your child about it? You can use the chat function to give me your answers. Yes, you can share. Yes, of course. What for me would be difficult is whenever your boy or girl, it's a case that I am seeing right now. I receive a call from the mother because she does not know how to handle the situation that her girl is undergoing. The girl refuses to talk to mother and father. That girl had been bullied because of her physical appearances, and those were boys that bullied her. So the truth is that she is really fearful. I think that the mother, within her despair, the daughter didn't want to talk to her and said, well, I'm going to take the mobile phone away until you tell me what's going on. Because the mother went into the despair. She didn't know what was going wrong with her daughter. And the daughter had to confess, but by force, in order to get back her mobile phone. And then her daughter said that she started to eat in the bathroom alone because of that despair that she had. Now, the daughter doesn't want to go out. She doesn't want to go shopping for clothes. She doesn't want to do anything at all. She's really locked in her home because she feels ugly. So the mother was deeply hurt when she heard that. I, as a mother, I will be really concerned of hearing what my child has to say. And this girl has attempted to cut herself. So now we have to figure out which is the best way, because we are not ready to face this condition. Thank you for sharing, and I thank you a lot for doing it, because maybe there are other people that are undergoing the same thing, or know somebody that are undergoing the same thing. So as parent, you don't know exactly how to create that confidence atmosphere when the life of your child is at peril. How can I support my child, but at the same time do whatever I have to do, assuming the responsibility as a parent to protect my child? So in a little while, I will be giving you a specific strategy, things that we can put in place at a case of an emergency. I heard that you mentioned that this girl started to cut herself. That is something that's completely different, but not all type of self-mutilation or cutting is an emergency. And I want to make myself clear. Oftentimes, When we see in the stories where we see self-mutilation or self-damage, teenagers might be doing it because they want to call the attention of somebody to come to give us their assistance. The mentality there, their mindset is not they want to die. They want to call the attention because they want to be helped. And us as parents, it is difficult to understand that. And maybe we go into despair. And what we want to do is to take care, and we have to create the atmosphere of love instead of taking a moment to try to understand what is really going on. So I will be providing with specific strategies that will put in place, and I hope that you can share them with the mother that you just shared about and other people that have shared their experiences in the chat, and they are fearful that things can get out of hand. Other of the concerns that I can see is that frustration of not having this perfect response that everything will be fine. They are traumatized by the bullying. I am afraid to face it, and I go into a crisis that might be hurting others, and those are real concerns, and I thank you for your courage for sharing. Now, yes, I'm going to be giving you specific actions that you can put in place when there's a child that comes up to you because he needs help, or if you identify any sign of distress in children. The first things that you can do with families or children in distress is to listen. Sometimes it's difficult to be a good listener. It is easier to say it than to do it. But if you do it right, if you're capable of listening, you can do it, and you will not be exacerbating that distress that they already have. They need to see that you are a person they can trust and that you are sure of yourself. Let them lead the conversation. Don't force them. We can come back to that example that we saw a while ago. Don't force them. Let them lead the conversation so it will be easier. Another of the items is to remain calm, even if they are not calm. Do whatever is possible for you to show that you can handle the things that you will be hearing. Maybe if you are altered, if you get angry, then they will shut up. Use gesture and language that show interest and affection. You know, bending to that person, and with non-verbal gestures you can convey that you are hearing, that you are there for them. Minimize distractions. Put away the mobile phone, because if not, the person will be at ease when sharing. So try to avoid your distractions and not be multitasking when listening to the distressed child. You also need to do it in a safe place, not in front of other people. Sometimes they come to us. I want to tell you something that happened to me. Yes, we'll talk later on. Maybe that is not the right moment, but remember to come back to the child and say, okay, this is the right moment. Come and share to me what you wanted to share a while ago, because otherwise you will be affecting that bond of trust or confidence. It is very difficult for me and for others that when people are sharing something and I have an idea that comes to my mind, I want to share it right away. But no, you have to calm down and let that child or the family be sharing whatever is happening with without interrupting them. Maybe even if it's really difficult to be hearing what they are sharing with you. And you can also think about what has been said. Some of the words that you can use if a child, a boy or girl, is sharing something and you don't understand correctly, or you want to think and make sure that you have understood. It sounds like, I understood you said this. I think that what you're telling me is that you are frustrating. Just try to make them see that you really want to understand what they are going on. The other thing in which we can help the young people in distress is demonstrating a good emotional control. Demonstrate strategies like take a deep breath, progressive muscle relaxation. Normally, if that child is angry at that moment, you can say, okay, let's take a deep breath together to try to calm down. You have to help them to manage and define their emotions by connecting with words to feelings and not assume the feelings that the boy or girl are feeling. Trying to help them understand and recognize what they are feeling. It would seem that you are sad, or if you see there's any stress, or maybe that boy is really stressed, is avoiding visual contact, it would seem that your muscles are really stressed. Are you upsetting right now? I see that your face is sad. I think that you are overwhelmed. So we want to make that connection of the words with the feeling and the experience that that child is undergoing. Make them feel that you are there to make them feel good. You might think it's difficult, but I'm here to help you. Thanks for sharing with me. You have been so courageous. Those are little phrases that you can use. I am not making promise that I won't be able to meet. I'm going to do my best to help you. Oftentimes, when it is not our children, if it's a student we're talking about with this teacher-student relationship, let's avoid giving them our private telephone, because if you don't pick up that telephone call, you won't be able to be there 24/7. So try to avoid false hope, like saying, you can call me at any time, day or night. Those are promises that we should not do. You can say, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. You can say, don't worry, I will do whatever is within my reach to help you, to avoid making promises that we cannot keep. And I want to share some resources, so I won't be reading the slide that is on the screen. I can send it to you later on if you wish, but those are things that you can put in place at home. But you need to inform yourself what you are doing today. If you have any doubt, you have to go to your social worker, a psychologist at school, a professional that could provide you with more information. The security that the child feels safe emotionally and physically. He knows that he has established a relationship with an adult he can trust and that has the tools that can manage his emotions. Those are the best things that we can give a child so he can be feeling safe. I would like to share crisis resources with you. If you know that a life on another person, a child, is at peril, call 911. Either emotional or physical, any concern that you might have, call 911. These are phone numbers that you can have in your refrigerator, in a post-it, and we know that you can also have text messages. Just text home to 741-741. That's also what you can do. You also have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So if your boy and girl don't feel comfortable talking with you, make them know that there are other resources available for them if they're not comfortable talking to you. But they can reach somebody else. If they have suicide thoughts, if they feel that they can talk to somebody, these are other resources that they can use. And before concluding my presentation, I want to highlight self-care. Self-care is so important. If we don't care for ourselves, we will not be able to help our children. These are the first things that you should have in mind. Awareness of yourself. How do I feel? What is my stress level? Be able to identify my own feelings, my own emotions, and how I can manage them. Second is balance. I know that balance is so difficult to reach, but you have to have balance between different activities and aspects of our life, between your job, your personal life, family time, and leisure time. It is very important to establish connections with persons in which we can trust, have the support relationships. And once again, if we don't take care of ourselves, it will be difficult to take care of our children. And I want to give you a message of hope and resilience. And I want to emphasize these three. You are not alone. Not everybody has undergone a trauma. Our brain has a great ability to grow and change. And us as human beings, we have the possibility of facing difficult things in life and overcome them. Not everything that is bad in our lives is a trauma. But if you do have a trauma, we can promote a healthy development in our children as well. I thank you, and I give you this message of hope and resilience, and I hope that my presentation has been helpful to you. We have 2 minutes left. If you have any doubt or any question, you can text it on the chat. We won't be able to answer them right away. However, you will be able to have access to our website where you will find other resources. If you want to contact us, you see the email on the screen. If you do need any resources, we will do whatever we can to assist you. And I thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, and I wish you an excellent weekend and excellent rest of the day. Take care.